Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted that you're part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. Please be sure to connect with us on Facebook, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Jedley Magic on Twitter, at Reading with Your Kids on Instagram. Our guest today is Melanie Hall. We are celebrating a winter walk in the city. Speaking of celebrating, we are celebrating the start of school all around the world. We don't know what it looks like in your area because it looks so different. Everybody's look different. Everybody is stressed out. So I want to try to help relieve some of that stress. I want to offer a limited number of school and or classrooms or just homeschooling communities a chance to book a free virtual performance of We Will Roar, Respect Others and Read, my internationally acclaimed school assembly program. Live assemblies, bringing 400, 500, 600 kids into an auditorium, that's not happening anytime soon. But we can come together through the magic of technology. And I would love to use the magic of technology to share my magic with the kids in your community. That's right. We will inspire your kids to respect everybody they meet and to make sure they read every single day. And we'll do that with a totally interactive virtual magic show. I'd love to meet your kids. I'd love to meet the folks in your community. All you need to do, first go to my website, wewillroar.com. That way you can learn a little bit about the show, see what folks have said about the show, and then find the contact button at the bottom of the page. Let me know that you're interested, and we'll do everything we can to bring this show to your community. wewillroar.com. Joining us right now from the Hudson Valley area in the beautiful state of New York. She is the illustrator of a beautiful book from our friends at Familius called A Winter Walk in the City. Please welcome to the show, Melanie Hall. Melanie, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you for that cheerful introduction.
I have to tell you, it's hard to not be cheerful as I'm looking at you. Melanie and I were chatting. She is speaking to us from her studio, and it is a beautiful artist's studio, and it just looks so bright. And she was telling me how she just lights up every time she goes into the space, and this smile is through the magic of technology. I am able to enjoy that smile and seeing her in her little spot of heaven.
That's aptly put.
Yeah. So
ever since I was little, I loved books, and I would actually create my own books when I was about 5 or 6 years old, and so they've always been part of my life. Going to the library was like the biggest thrill. Bicycling to the library and coming out of the door with a big stack of books. The librarians loved it when I came in the door.
Wow, that's you're creating with you using your words to create and paint this picture that we don't see a lot of anymore. Unfortunately, we don't see kids riding their bike to the library. Like when you and I were younger, going to the library was a thing that we did on our own. We didn't. Sometimes we went with our parents, but typically it was us, and it was something we did. And it might be something we did with a couple of friends, but oftentimes it was kind of a solitary thing to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was part of my life. Yeah.
Kids, kids have this technology, and they're able to use, the technology we're using. We're able to speak. We're 200 or 300 miles apart, but yet we're able to speak and see each other. And kids are able to talk to folks around the world, but it seems like those same kids don't get to go outside and ride their bikes in their neighborhoods.
Right. Yeah, it's having fun.
Yeah.
I think kids are getting very sophisticated with their communication, more subtle. Kids seem like really on top of things, really smart. but I wonder if they're having fun.
Yeah.
I live in a rural community. It's full of artists, but it's still like trees and mountains and the Hudson Valley. It's the Catskills. And the kids around me have chickens. They raise chickens and ducks, like my neighbor has chickens and ducks. And I just love seeing the kids like coming over with like chicks in their hands and showing me. And they're just so full of joy to doing this. And I just love that.
That's wonderful. Well, tell us, we had the author of A Winter Walk in the City on not too long ago, Kathy Goldberg-Fishman. And you were telling us that you and Kathy have collaborated on not only in this book but other projects as well. Can you remind us what A Winter Walk in the City is all about?
Yes, so A Winter Walk in the City is it's a counting book. It's for younger readers, but it's also all about cultural diversity, introducing kids to all kinds of holidays and different cultures, Kwanzaa, Chinese New Year, Muhammad's birthday, Passover. So in walking around the city, the narrator, the main character, who's biracial, sees all these different kinds of people and celebrates all their different holidays. And it's just really lovely to introduce that idea to kids.
Yeah.
I grew up when the UN, when there was like the Walt Disney's It's a Small World, and we celebrated diversity. And so I'm glad to be promoting this idea that enriches our lives.
Yeah. You know, it wasn't so much in our house, but I know people around me as I was growing up, again, almost 100 years ago, they thought that celebrating other cultures somehow took away from your own culture and was somehow disrespectful to your culture or your religion. That's something I didn't really understand a lot. I heard it. It wasn't something that we really bought into in our family. We were kind of crazy, and we celebrated lots of things. What?
Yeah.
Do you think that attitude still exists today?
It probably does, but since I go into New York City very often, well, not now, but I did. It's I always loved seeing different neighborhoods and seeing, passing on the sidewalk, so many different kinds of people in turbans, Asian people, black people. It's just so interesting. So I think that that's something that I think kids are becoming more sophisticated about that because it's being taught in schools. Mm-hmm. That besides Christmas, there's other holidays. It's Hanukkah, the Kwanzaa, and Chinese New Year comes up afterwards.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that kids are just to open their eyes. If we don't, they don't know it exists. So we have to educate them.
You're right, and there's so much connection between the different cultures, especially the three major religions that you mentioned, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. That's all different branches of the same tree. And, I think if we help our kids at a very young age understand that we are all part of this beautiful human family, and start to think of each other as family members, that's the only hope we have of creating this equitable and just world that we all talk so much about.
It's true that, and the underlying core of these books is community. On the last page of each book, it's a series, like it celebrates also the 4 seasons. So the last page of each book, the community comes together, all the different people in the neighborhood come together and share. So in Winter Walk in the City, they're sharing empanadas. And there's the vendor is like handing out, and the kids are handing out empanadas to everybody. And in Spring Stroll in the city, which I'm working on now, they're dancing in the park together with scarves.
That's
so. Yeah,
that's really
it's community.
Beautiful.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
That's where coming together is important and respecting each other.
I think that idea of respect, I think, is so key. And, and that is one of the things that we taught our kids from a very, very young age, is that we don't have to agree on everything. We don't have to like everything that somebody's doing, but we do have to show each and every person that we come in contact with respect. Yes, we have to. Yes, the kids have to grow up with that respect, and then so that's how they act accordingly. They like you said, you don't have to agree with somebody, but you respect what they're saying and listen too. Like, people don't listen to each other; they cut each other off. They don't want to hear it. You're right. What you just said reminds me of a quote, and I'm going to not say it properly, but there are some people out there that don't listen; they just wait to respond.
Yes.
Right. And I think that is teaching our kids to listen is such an important lesson. And I think the best way to teach our kids to listen is to listen to them.
Yes, yeah, that's true. And also that has something to do with kindness and respecting people, listening. There's that element of kindness, having an open heart. And even if we don't agree, we can still have an open heart to people and be kind. That's important.
Yeah. Now, I'm checking out your website. You have some delightful illustrations, and you have a very unique style. Is there a name to your style of illustrating?
Well, I love using mixed media, so I'll combine collage with colored pencil or paint, or else I'll decide to print something, and I made up my own technique of and tinting it afterwards, like printing and then tinting. But because I love experimenting with my media, I come up with, okay, what is the best media to use for this subject matter, for this particular book? And so I discuss it with my publisher, and they agree, oh, yes, that would be good. But every time I get an order of art supplies, oh, my gosh, I'm so happy. It's like, it's like Christmas. But it's not that playful aspect of it. And I think I'm depicting a lot of joy. There's a lot of movement in my art, a lot of joy. Some people liken it to Chagall, which is like, oh boy, that's such a great compliment. But I'm also depicting a little bit of the inner life of, expressing that joy and that liveliness. So a lot of my figures, they're not standing still. They're like dancing or prancing or arms flung out in joy. Yeah.
Yes, you're right. There's a lot of color, but there is a lot of joy, and there's a lot of you can just feel the movement as you're looking at the illustration. We do have a lot of authors and illustrators. We have a lot of parents of really creative kids who may grow up to be a visual artist listening to the show. Is there a specific technique, one little secret that you can share that can help a kid or a emerging artist kind of add that energy?
And I do. I tell my students that do what makes you happy and what comes naturally for you to do. Don't try to think of like, well, they like it. whoever they is. Don't worry about your audience, your viewers. Do what you enjoy doing. And the more personal something is, the more universal. For the older students, I say, the more personal you make an image, the more universal it is, the more that everybody can relate to it. But it's really bringing out your natural self and not worrying about what this looks like to others. You have to do your own, you have to express your own unique style.
That's interesting. As a performer myself, there was this, and I was lucky that I kind of, the first couple of years of my life as a performer, a lot of it was self-taught. So I didn't have people telling me you should do it this way or that way. I just kind of stumbled along and made mistakes until I figured it out. So it was, doing things my way and doing things the way I like to do it came kind of naturally because I didn't have anybody saying it should be this way.
Yeah.
What do you say to those kids who are taking a more traditional path? And I imagine you two might have run into this where you had people say, no, that's not the way to do it. The way to do it is this way, and this is the path. How did you kind of find the courage and the confidence to learn to express yourself in your art and let your personality be felt in your art?
That's a really good question. It's really a dance. It's really keeping one's balance, because I do veer from one side to the other. Sometimes my work looks a little more figurative. Sometimes it can be a little more abstract. So I'm constantly calibrating, and there's no one correct way to solve a design problem or an illustration problem. There are many right ways of doing it. And where are you at that moment? What is interesting to me at this moment? And so, I think a lot of it is being present. And when I come into my studio and sit down and work, that's when I really have clarity of mind. I'm just made this way. So when I do my artwork, that's when I really feel like myself. So I want to express myself. But it does give me an balance by working as an artist. But as I said, it's I go back and forth and I try different things and see what looks right, what feels right, how people respond to it. I've done things where I think it's just, oh my gosh, it's just dandy, and people are puzzled, what? But I'm a veteran now, so I kind of, know what's not show-offy, what's authentic.
It's interesting that you use the word problem solving.
Yeah.
I never thought of art as being a problem solving kind of pursuit until recently. Do you approach, when you're illustrating a book, is that the kind of approach that you take? You listen to the words, you read the words that the author has put down, and then instead of looking at a spec sheet which says, well, I think that the illustration should look like this, do you listen to the words and then try to solve the problem? How can I best express these set of words?
Well, I'm doing two things. I use left brain and right brain because an illustrator, whether she knows it or not, is also a designer. And so we're designing the book as well as illustrating it. But also, I use a trick that ad people have used for years. When I first have a manuscript and I read it over, I record all the images that I have in my mind, that just run across my mind, and I record them. And so, I free associate.
Uh-huh.
So I'm doing both, left brain, right brain, and it's a great marriage of the two when I work.
That's really fascinating. Not being a visual artist, I kind of thought it's we just kind of sit down and I know right from the start what I want to create. But it's more, it's kind of seeing where your imagination takes you. And do you ever get to the point where you're working on a particular illustration and then you get halfway through and you go, nah, I got to start over?
I have, yeah, and I try to correct it, and it just doesn't work. And so if I start fresh, then it's like whole new energy. Sometimes you can just like overworking something. It's easier just to start over, and then you have better idea of manifesting what's in your mind.
I'm curious. Where do you stand on technology in art? There are a lot of, I was mentioning to you beforehand, we've published over 850 episodes of the show, so we've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of different illustrations. A lot of them kind of seem the same. There are a lot that you can pick up and say, this looks like it was made by a computer. What do you think about that? Do you think that technology is a great assist to artists, or do you think artists are relying too heavily on technology?
Well, that's really a conundrum now, because I have a lot of students that do work with, immediately go to their tablets and start drawing on their tablets. And I have to admit, I'm old-fashioned. I love the pencil and paper, and I love color. And as I told you, I love to experiment with media, so I need to do that first. But I will manipulate some digital files if I think, that didn't come out quite the way I wanted. Or sometimes I can enlarge things much easier than having to redraw it. So I use the technology as a tool to serve my everything hand done. I mean, but I do find that when I'm working on something, and I'm such a perfectionist, I'm a little obsessive. Well, not a little, a lot. So I realize, I can correct that in Photoshop. Don't worry about if there's a little smudge or something. Don't worry about it. That'll be fine. And it frees me. Uh-huh. But I've noticed that too. I was very disappointed to see how much computer art there is now, and there is a kind of like a slickness to it. But illustration, like everything else, goes through fashions. It goes through trends. So right now, that's very hot to do, digital art. But that may change. The pendulum may swing the other way. But some people like it. So art is subjective. So I'm not judging it.
Yeah.
I just do what I do, and if people want that, fine. Yeah. And they do.
So a winter walk in the city is available for folks from our friends from Familius. You told us you were working on a spring walk,
right?
And then a summer and a fall walk will follow.
Yes, yeah. It's we're using a little alliteration. So at first it was a winter hike in the city,
okay.
And then we came up with a winter walk. And now we have spring stroll in the city.
Okay.
And so they're all seasonal. So I get to show like the park with bare tree branches and snowflakes. And now it's like little buds on the trees and flowers and a lot of greens. So fall will be fun with the autumnal colors. Yeah, it's just, I always loved the idea of the four seasons.
Yeah.
And I'm a northerner, so I enjoy that, and I enjoy depicting that.
Yeah.
But as you probably saw in looking at my artwork, I love color. Mm-hmm. I mean, I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So, I love the different palettes for each book.
Yes. That is one of the things, the pictures that I saw, there was a lot of blue, and that's one of my favorite colors. I seem to be drawn to not photos, but paintings and illustrations that have a lot of that blue and different shades. That's one of the things too about your illustrations is that it's blue, but it's also light blue and dark, and it's kind of there's even movement in the colors.
It's interesting because I'm growing some indigo plants right now. A student was doing that, and she sent me some plants, which I put in my garden, and then you dry the leaves of the plant, and they become that indigo dye. So I'm planning to play with that indigo dye, like canvases, paper. I don't know yet. Wow. But I'm just like, I can't wait till they're, I got them like they were little, few inches tall, and now they're about like 6 inches tall. I can't wait till they're ready. I can harvest them. But that indigo blue, as you say, blue is just, yeah. It's like the water, it's like the sky.
Yeah. Now I have to be honest, there is a blue painting that I saw one time that I didn't like, and it was just this big canvas of blue. And I'm just sitting there going, how did this get into a museum? I know. I'm not going to ask you to comment on that. That's me and my my ignorance. That just flips.
Well, one of my big influences were the Impressionist painters. I'm crazy about Monet, always have been, and he paints in color groups like blue, mauve, green, the cool colors, and then he'll do orange, yellow, pinks together. And so I find that's influenced me so much. I tend to do that. My colored pencils are organized as the cools and warms.
Oh, wow. This has been fascinating for me. I know that folks are going to want you absolutely need to do yourself a favor and visit Melanie's website. Tell everybody the address so they can check out what I'm looking at right now.
Okay, so it's mhallillustration.com.
Yes.
So MHALL illustration.com. And Winter Walk in the City can be pre-ordered through the through a website, and it'll be available in stores November 10th.
Awesome.
When it comes out.
Awesome. Well, we've had a great time speaking to the illustrator of A Winter Walk in the City, a great book from our friends at Familius. Melanie, thanks so much for spending this time with us today.
Oh, thank you. I've enjoyed talking with you so much. Thank you.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guests will be Prue McDonald and Deb Gruel, two great authors celebrating two great, wonderful books. That's the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. If you are the author and you're struggling because, the traditional ways to promote children's books, live school assemblies, classroom visits, library visits, book signings, they're just not available to authors during this time of COVID. So we would love to tell you about our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program. This is a fantastic program, and it's getting even better. If our panel of parents, kids, and teachers believes that your book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars, it becomes a certified great read. And with that certification comes a number of tools that can really help your book stand out from the crowd of books that are published every single month. Lori Olinsky is a 2-time Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read author. She loves the program. Now, having Lori's endorsement is really special to me because Lori is a marketing professional. She's not like most children's authors who write this book and suddenly find out, I got to market this? What do you mean? I'm an author. I don't know how to market. Lori knows how to market, and she sees the value in the Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program. Please check it out. Go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the Author Services button that you'll find up at the top of the page. All the information about the program is right there. In fact, you can submit an application right from that spot. readingwithyourkids.com, Author Services. Hey, I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to thank our guest, Melanie Hall. I want to thank my team, starting with my producer, Fatima Khan, my awesome author ambassador, Peggy Cotto. I want to thank my amazing daughter, Alejandra, who is really bringing some great ideas to the show. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support and the love that she gives me, but most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you so much for making the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.